when I was forced by my anxiety disorder to study the makeup of physiology and how that affects our neurology, I suddenly went, holy crap, you can think anything and that doesn't mean it's real. And so if I could have a panic attack and truly believe, all right, that's our word of the day, right? If I could truly believe that I was going to die during that panic attack and it not be true, then what else could I truly believe that might not be true? And it opened up a whole area of study that I would not have even looked at had life not forced me to. So thank you, Doctor. I really enjoyed your presentation, by the way, in case I miss you.
Yeah, Jerry, can I still call you pastor or not?
Certainly.
Pastor.
Just don't do it on the internet or a bunch of atheists will tear you up.
Well, Pastor, as you know, I told you yesterday I come from a family where there's a lot of pastoral ancestry involved, but I also
Yes.
have a brother and sister who are very born again.
Yeah.
They've both lost spouses to cancer. And so you can probably, I can probably appreciate what you said, that there's ministers that have have to have an ounce of agnosticism after all this failed prayer.
Certainly.
That's got to be the case with my brother and sister as well. Yeah. And as much as I'm looking forward to reading your book, for years, I'm looking for a book that I could possibly give them that they'll read. I know that my sister, I once gave her a book when I became a vegetarian about 15 years ago, and I gave her a book at one time that was on the nonviolence of Jesus and all that. My mom told me afterwards that, she told me she's not going to read that book because she doesn't want to open something that's going to tell her that Jesus this and so on. Yeah. I'm thinking if I give her this, it has the word atheism on it.
Right.
So it may never be open there. But
certainly.
Is this book going to be directed towards people who just might have an ounce of something where you can or not? Because that's what I'm...
Yeah, I've got...
go
ahead.
If you can just elaborate, who it's really directed for. I mean, because it'll be entertaining for a lot of us to read. Yeah. But it's really not going to, we're already there.
Right. It's actually, and this is something that that has been a concern of mine. I don't know how many of you have been involved in publishing and all those kind of things, but it's a world unto its own. And so the publishers and the literary agents that approached me after the New York Times article, they approached me obviously because of the article and the way the article was written, the way that it represented me, okay? And the way that it represented me was almost like a bridge between religion and the secular movement, right? Because I was very respectful, as I was, I'm sure today as well, very respectful of my religious heritage and the people, that I love. And so the publishers, that's the kind of book that they wanted, because obviously they want to sell as many books as possible. They're investing money, in the book. They want to sell it to as many people as possible. So it actually is almost geared like a religious book, okay? And so I know there's going to be certain, hardcore atheists that's going to read it and go, every 3 lines he should stop and explain this and explain that and tell the world how this happens and how that happens. That's not what it is. It's literally a human interest story where you follow with me. You are with me through the entirety of my life. You're with me through every single change, and I don't stop really until the end and explain how these things are happening. You're seeing it through my eyes. You're experiencing it as I experienced it. And so for some people in the atheist movement, that may or may not, be a joy for them because they're going to want a hammer instead of a book. But I think for the rest of the religious community, people who dare to open it up even though it has the word atheist on it, they're going to say, holy cow, that guy really was a believer. That guy really made some sacrifices. That guy really was there. He was the real deal. And that's the whole point, is for them to see that I really was the real deal, and being the real deal took me to this place. So, what type of, you said it's your sister that you want to give it to?
Well, I have both a brother and a sister. They're both born-again missionaries. And
okay, what denomination in particular?
Baptist.
Baptist, okay. What I would do is I would go online and I would look for a book called, I think it's called One. And it's written by Mike Williams out of Houston, Texas. And it's not an atheist book, all right, but it's a book that represents the inclusion doctrine, to where there is no hell and everybody ends up being saved, and it's actually the end of their theology. They're still very much Christians. They still believe that Christ died on the cross and everybody is saved because of that. But the end of their understanding about theology makes them live like atheists, because there's nothing left to do. There's no need for church. There's no need for anything. And so he makes his argument so well from a Christian perspective that if you gave them that kind of book and gave it to them to refute it or to answer your questions about it, it would probably expose areas of theology to them that they're ignorant to now because of the bubble they live in. And that's all you need is to crack the bubble. That's all you got to do is just crack that one little tear, and then it's off and running.
Love Wins is just like that too.
Yes, Love Wins does the same thing. That's right.
It's a Christian book, but it breaks those cracks. So
That's right.
The best one is called Love Wins by Rob Bell.
Yeah, Rob Bell. Almost
Yeah,
anything
that's
about
called,
Rob
what's
Bell.
the name of that book? One?
One.
W-O-N?
No.
Or one,
Right.
O-N-E?
Right. O-N-E.
Yeah.
Yep, one.
Okay.
Mike Williams, Houston, Texas. And I don't
Okay.
get any, royalties off of that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Pastor.
Jerry, I got to tell you, I loved meeting you last night, and I've really enjoyed your talk today. I think it's
Thank
been
you.
excellent.
Thank you.
I think everybody should give him another hand, matter of fact.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I had one comment I wanted to make, and then one question. The comment I wanted to make is we kind of hit a speed bump at one point in your talk where the accusation was that by coming together in a secular group, we are somehow being church-like.
Right.
That we are somehow being congregational. Well, politics isn't just on television.
Right.
And politics isn't just on Capitol Hill. We are a polity right now. And the secular movement is itself a polity. We are engaged in polity. So don't think that coming together somehow lessens your individuality as an atheist or a secular humanist. It does not. It makes you a participant in the body of human Congress. And I think it's really important to make that distinction.
I agree.
Okay.
Completely.
The other thing I wanted to ask is, and this was also in your talk, several times you referenced that you didn't know we existed.
Right. Right.
And I think that's really important. And once you said it, I started thinking about myself, because I'm just as self-centered as anybody else. And I thought, well, if he didn't see it, why did I? Yeah. Is the first question I thought of.
Sure.
And so I wanted to dig down into that a little deeper. I'm not looking for a facile or a glib kind of response, but
Yeah.
I know that at 12 years old, and we talked about this last night,
Right.
I picked up Bullfinch's Mythology, Edith Hamilton's book, many other books that covered mythology and theology in the Bible. And I think we all have kind of gone on a little bit of a search, say, what do these people think? Wow, they're wacky, that kind of thing, right? So you had to have gone through something similar when you were 12, 13, 14, 15 years old. There had to have been a time when you looked around the world and you probably learned about Madalyn Murray O'Hair like I did.
No.
You didn't run across it?
Not at that age, for sure, no.
Well, I find that odd.
Yeah.
But anyway, what I wanted to know, what I wanted was...
And if I did, I don't remember it, so. Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, go ahead.
What I kind of wanted is the piece of you that looked out from your childhood or from your early adulthood or your development at the atheist world and the secular world, and what did you think?
Yeah, right.
That's what I want to know.
Yeah, and that's a great question, and two-part answer to that. One thing, I think to understand people from where I come from, you have to keep in mind, I'm not talking about, when I reference Christianity, I'm limited by my own experience. And so I'm not talking about Episcopalians in Boston, I'm talking about Pentecostals in Plaquemine Parish, okay? And that's a much more defined and restrictive environment. I come from a place where you weren't allowed to go to the movies, you weren't allowed to have a television, you weren't even allowed to read comic books, you weren't allowed to, everything was it was exclusionary.
I was baptized Episcopalian.
You didn't tell me that last night. That was the Holy Spirit discerned that. Did y'all see that? Yeah. And so that's important first to know for certain people like myself, it's such a restrictive environment that information is sometimes hard to come by, unless you are intentionally moving out and trying to look for it. Then secondarily, one of the earliest memories I have is my head in my grandmother's lap with a throbbing earache, a warm washcloth on the side of my head, her praying for me and speaking in other tongues as she's praying for me. That's one of my earliest memories. And so from a child, maybe the terminology is probably not right, but as a child, I feel like my brain was wired to accept supernaturalism. Supernaturalism I grew up with it making sense. And so that makes it also more difficult. So from where I came from, there weren't really non-believers. There were believers and unbelievers. And the unbeliever was just a person who hadn't heard the gospel yet. It wasn't a person who had made an intentional declaration. It was just someone who hadn't got the gospel yet. And so there was a part of me that was very aware that they were out there, but they weren't a movement. They weren't representing something. They just needed to get the Holy Ghost. They needed to be saved. Yeah.
So you thought if they were exposed,
Oh, no doubt in my mind.
they would change.
Absolutely. If they were exposed, they would change, right? Absolutely.
Interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, which is what makes you an evangelist, because you're trying to expose everyone to it. Yeah. Yeah, I know we need to get...
Do you have any relationships at all with your wife?
Oh, yes. We're very, very good friends. Very, very, very good friends.
Did you lose your house?
No, I claimed bankruptcy and stopped the foreclosure. Actually, on the same day that the book deal was made, had it not been for the bankruptcy, my home would have been sold at the sheriff's sale. So that's a twist there. Isn't it?
God intervened, didn't he?
Yeah, through a $2,800 attorney.
Now, we don't want you to leave, Jerry, because, of course, we also have an award of appreciation for you.
Thank you.
And we're going to play.
That sounds good.
We're going to begin with Vivek Palavali. He is a medical doctor. Vivek has been my friend and the friend of Michigan Atheists and the friend of the secular community in Michigan, because he lives in Michigan for a long, long time. He is well known to many of us in the room. He spoke at our conventions almost very frequently. And he's a noted brain surgeon, and he practices in the Flint area. He's an author, he's a film producer, and a popular speaker. A couple of years ago, Vivek embarked on a global journey with video camera in his hand, which he really didn't know how to operate and had to learn, and he did an amazing job. And he filmed a documentary that is breathtaking called The Creator of God. Now, unlike the Creator of God, the bitter pill, which he's going to talk about today, does not have a secular theme. But we all realize that we are somewhat, of course, slightly with that today, but healthcare is a major issue in this country, and it was mentioned many times this morning in your Q&A. And there is no doubt that the politicians would actually lace our healthcare with a religious theme, right? Absolutely. So, now, Vivek has long been concerned, since he is a physician, he's been long concerned with the problems facing our healthcare system. And he asked the question, why is America's healthcare so expensive and ranks so low in comparison with other countries? truth is that America is the most expensive healthcare in the world, but we're only 38 in the world. That's scary. As a physician, Vivek finds it unconscionable that the U.S. spends $3 trillion annually on health care, and yet millions of Americans are uninsured, sick, and at risk. Dr. Paula Barry.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. Always is my pleasure to be here, and I really appreciate you inviting me to do this. Let's get this started before the postprandial glucose level gets you guys sedated. So we're gonna go right away. I'm gonna start with just a clip from my film. The American healthcare system is seriously ill. The United States spends almost $3 trillion a year on healthcare. Yet, millions of Americans are left uninsured and sick.
We believe that healthcare is a human right. We believe that healthcare is a human right.
The industrialized countries in Europe, on the other hand, spend much less, but their citizens are healthier and also live longer. Who is responsible for the critical condition that American healthcare is in? The corrupt politicians in Washington, D.C., the big bad insurance companies, the profit-driven hospitals, or the greedy pharmaceuticals? How about the lawyers, the doctors, and the patients themselves? Can Obamacare rescue ailing healthcare in America? My name is Vivek Palavali. I am a neurosurgeon. Join me in a thorough dissection in diagnosing the cancer that's destroying the American healthcare system. The cure is like a bitter pill. Unless we accept that bitter medicine, healthcare in America will not survive. That's why we'll be talking about healthcare in America, American healthcare in America. You may ask me why I made this film. I'm, as Arlene said, I'm a brain surgeon by profession, but I'm a documentary filmmaker by passion. Why healthcare? I've been practicing medicine in Flint for 16 years. I trained in University of Chicago and came to Flint in 1995, and I've been practicing there for now 16 years. It has seen tremendous changes as far as the availability, access, and cost and quality as far as healthcare is concerned to all the Flint population. But that problem is not unique to just Flint. It's throughout America right now. It's an incredibly difficult problem, and it's getting worse. This is an actual picture I saw when I was in Boston. Went to Harvard University, and as I came out, I saw this lady with this picture. Now, she had no insurance. If it were not for the Medicare and part of Massachusetts care called Romney Care, she would not have had any help. This is an American, and that's the status of the country right now. And it's not getting any better. It is getting more and more expensive. As you can see, every year, every family has to spend more money on health care. So they're asking for, can I have a cheaper diagnosis, you know? So Obama took notice of that. In 2009, the year before he came up with this, what's called Patient Protection and Healthcare Affordability Act, he went to American Medical Association, and that's where he said this. He said, make no mistake, cost of our healthcare is a threat to our economy. It's an escalating burden on our families and businesses. It is a ticking time bomb to the federal budget. Right now, it costs 17% of GDP. It's unbelievable amount of money. And it's going to go up to a lot more than 20%, if costs are not contained. That's the reason I started thinking about why is that this is so expensive, especially with Obamacare coming. Everybody was talking about it, and a lot of them were against it. And I wanted to understand why they feel that way, and I wanted to understand healthcare much deeper. So I did a little bit of research, and I was learning more and more. Besides what I personally saw as a physician, the elections were coming in, and everybody started talking about healthcare even more. So I said, you know what? I'm researching a lot about it, and I like making documentary films. Why the heck not make a documentary film about healthcare? And that's the reason this film is here now. And I just finished it a few weeks ago, and I had a sneak preview, and Arlene was gracious enough to come all the way to Flint to watch it. It is of tremendous significance to every American, unless you are so rich that it doesn't matter, because it's a very, very serious problem in America. So this guy, John Goodman, who's an health economist, said, well, there are only 3 problems with American healthcare: cost, quality, and access, which means everything about healthcare is a problem in America, right? It is the country that spends the highest amount of money than any country, including all the other developed nations. So forget about comparing to third world countries. Even if you compare to the equivalent developed nations, we spend the highest amount of money, and you can see it keeps going up. Both per person, on an average, we spend $8,000 per American, which is half to 1.5 times, 2 times to 1.5 times more than the other average expenses in European countries. They're all developed countries, but they're able to do this for less price, which makes this America, in this country, look like there are 2 Americas as far as healthcare is concerned. Those who have money and those who don't have money. There are 2 different systems as far as the kind of care they get and the quality of care they get, and I see it all the time in my practice as a surgeon. Now, in 2000, World Health Organization had a survey to find out what's the best nation as far as healthcare in the world is concerned. And France came first. And what they looked at was, how can they provide basic universal health care while keeping the dignity of their citizens intact, and bring it about to with such a cost that it's not going to bankrupt those people. That's what they looked at. And France was number 1, and the United States was 37th. And they looked at a lot of different things: life expectancy, adult male mortality, adult female mortality. America ranks the last among all the developed nations as far as life expectancy. And it ranks 42nd and 43rd when it comes to male and female mortalities. So if a woman gets pregnant, she has a much better chance, and her child has a much better chance in some of the European countries than in America as far as surviving that. The saddest thing is, even though this is the most powerful country in the world and one of the richest in the world, 50 million Americans are uninsured. That's a lot of population. 17% of Americans are uninsured. So what do? As one of the free clinics I showed that I see a lot of people in Flint go, many Americans in many different parts of the country do the same thing. They go to free clinics. And the number of free clinics and the population that's attending the free clinics have been increasing. Now, this one called Remote Area Medical, created by this guy by name Stan Brock, a British guy. He said, you know what? There are a lot of developing nations and third world countries that do not have access to even decent basic health care. So we're going to have this traveling health care to take care of these developing nations and third world countries. So a few years ago, 67%, a lot of it was done in those third world countries. Now 67% of their activities are done only in America. And these are all Americans waiting the day before, cold, lining up to get their care. Americans. And Bernie Sanders, man, I like this guy. is the senator from Vermont. He doesn't hold any punches back. He said, let's make this clear. America is the only industrialized nation in the world that does not guarantee health care to all of its citizens. Incredible. Most of the European nations, if not all, have universal health care. France has been doing it 74, Sweden 1955, England 38, Japan since 1938. They have universal health care, basic universal health care. By the way, I went to all these countries. These are all the shots I took when I was there. It's not that America is cheap. It spends a lot of money. That's a lot of zeros, man. $3 trillion this year, almost close to $3 trillion we'll be spending on healthcare. Yet, we got the worst bang for our buck because, healthcare buck, because 50 million Americans are uninsured, and we rank last among all the developed nations as far as healthcare outcomes are concerned. And why is that? That's because we provide too much medical care. Recently, there was a lot of information coming on, research coming on, especially a lady by name Rita Redberg, who is the one of the medical editors of Journal of American Medical Association, a very prestigious association journal, spent more time doing research on this. 30% of everything done to Americans, as far as health care, is either unnecessary or duplicated or ineffective. That's a mind-boggling number. And why is that? There are a lot of reasons for that, but this is, the emphasis is being put on this because of all the new research that's coming in. And we also provide very expensive care. Unfortunately, we try to equate expensive care as good care. Not necessarily. There are many less expensive but equally effective interventions available, but we tend to think that the state-of-the-art, the most expensive is better. Not true. In fact, sometimes they can actually harm people when they're done unnecessarily. So I think a few months ago, the Newsweek magazine had a cover article with a guy as if he's undergoing surgery with 4 surgical knives coming from 4 corners. And the cover said, the article headliner was, the one word you need to know to save your life. And when you open to the article, the guy has a hospital gown and running away, and a bunch of medical professionals are coming towards him. And the answer is no. That means don't do stuff to me. 30%, maybe not necessary, and can then cause problems